on the train going home, in a very sexy scene that isn't. It's funny because having sex on the train doesn't have any sex. Diane Lane was 14 years old when she was on the cover of Time magazine. She was a millionaire by the age of 18. She was a young star with an angelic face that Hollywood was after. There was less noise as she went though. And Diane finally admitted she had affairs with both Timothy Hutton and Christopher Atkins when she was 59 years old. Both of them were co-stars who had been rumored to have had affairs with Diane for a long time, but never proved. As a young star in a romantic comedy, to the strangely intense scene in Unfaithful that people always thought was real sex. Diane Lane has played a lot of emotionally difficult parts, been through 2 failed marriages, been arrested, and been the subject of a lot of rumors that were never confirmed. But what kind of person is Diane Lane behind those sad eyes? You won't want to miss this story that has never been told in full before. She was born in New York City on January 22, 1965. Colleen Lee Farrington, who went by the name Colleen Price, was her mother. She was a bar singer and model, and she was in Playboy's Miss October 1957 centerfold. Burton Eugene Lane, her father, was an acting coach in Manhattan. He ran a theater school with John Cassavetes, worked as a taxi driver, and then went on to teach humanities at City College of New York. Diane's parents split up when she was only 13 days old. After that, her mum went to Mexico and asked for a divorce. She had control of Diane until she was 6 years old, but when she moved to Georgia, she gave her to her father. Diane then moved from one private hotel to another in New York with her father, and often rode with him in his taxi every day. They lived together for many years. Diane's childhood was marked by rides across Manhattan in an old cab, odd school schedules, and a unique way of raising her children. She did not grow up in a stable home. Instead, she was surrounded by small stages and the wild life of artists. She had to grow up quickly and learn how to be independent during that time. By the time she was 15, she announced herself free from her father. Chris Atkins, her co-star and friend from Child Bride of Short Creek, went with her to Los Angeles for a week. Diane afterwards said it was the reckless action of a girl who was too young to have a lot of freedom. When she got back to New York, she moved in with a friend's family, paid her own rent, and used an online program to finish high school. On the other hand, her mother suddenly showed up again in 1981 and took her back to Georgia. Diane and her dad went to court, and after 6 weeks, Diane was able to go back to New York. Diane didn't talk to her mother for 3 years after that event, until they finally made up. Diane sometimes went to the town of Bardo when she was in Georgia with her Pentecostal grandma. There, she learned how to live simply, away from all the noise. She talked about having a free life, eating salted meat and butter, and fixing lawnmowers. It was a way for her to stay calm and centered in the crazy world. She had to grow up quickly, deal with her parents' divorce, live in unstable situations, and grow apart from her mother. All of these things helped Diane Lane become an independent woman who is wary of the media and always makes a clear distinction between her real life and the parts she plays. Diane Lane's first movie role was in A Little Romance, 1979, which she shared with the famous Laurence Olivier. She was 13 years old at the time. The movie wasn't just a stepping stone, it was a bomb, making Diane Lane famous all over the country overnight. Instead of just being a cute kid on TV, she was a real actress with the body of a teenager. Her eyes showed a lot of emotion, and she had a depth of feeling that was far beyond her years. Not long after that, on August 13, 1979, she was on the cover of Time magazine with the title Hollywood's Whiz Kids. This made her the center of attention. The magazine called her a breath of fresh air in a time when movies lacked realism and instinct. People didn't fall in love with this girl because she was perfect. They liked how honest and pure she was on screen, which isn't often seen. Diane Lane didn't look like she was reading lines. People of all ages thought every feeling she showed was real because she lived in each scene. Diane had already earned the trust of the audience at age 14, which is something that many artists work their whole careers to do. And because of that great start, she would always get Hollywood's most valuable currency, kindness and respect, no matter what the ups and downs were. Soon after, Diane continued to be in a string of big movies, including Touched by Love and Six Pack. She then reached the height of her career with movies like Rumblefish, The Outsiders, Streets of Fire, and The Cotton Club. Many of these were directed by Francis Ford Coppola, who gave her 3 parts in a row, which is a huge compliment for a teenage actress. Diane Lane was a fortune by the time she was 18. She had a full film schedule, made a lot of money, and was always on the big screen. While the lighting was bright, it cast shadows. Diane had to deal with the bad parts of fame as her work took off. Even though she was still a teenager, she was often compared to co-stars Matt Dillon, Michael Pere, and Richard Gere because of how well they got along on screen. Diane often had to reject these rumors in public or keep quiet to keep her private life safe. A lot of people don't get what she meant when she said that. During this time, most of the parts she got were variations on the ideal girlfriend. This made her feel like she was being typecast because she rarely had chances to show a wider range of emotions. Diane as an actress and the roles she played became less clear to audiences, so she had to stay away from the media and be pickier about the script she read. Diane Lane jumped right into fame when she got to Hollywood, a beautiful but dangerous road. She also had to learn quickly that being well known does not mean being understood. And it's not enough to be a great actor. You also need to know how to stay alive in a world that wants to write your story for you. Diane Lane moved into a new phase of her career, where she didn't just act, but wanted to be heard as a fully formed artist. For years, she had been typecast as the on-screen girlfriend, and lived in a blurred space between character and reality. In 2002, she played Connie Sumner in Adrian Lyne's Unthinkable. Connie is a wife who cheats on her husband not out of lust, but because she feels deeply alone and disconnected in a life that seems to be going so well. It was the first time Diane had a character with so many layers and so many feelings. There was no talking or sex in the scene where Connie sits on a train after her first affair. There were only trembling hands, blurry eyes, and shallow breaths. People still talk about it as a great example of how to act through silence years later. A few people know that the scene wasn't in the first draft. Diane told the Jess Cagle show that Adrian Lyne told her to just shoot something after the shot was over and the train was being brought back to the station. I didn't ask anything. Then I shut my eyes and began. We only did it once and never did it again. She laughed and said, "There's no sex scene on the train, but everyone thinks there is, on Late Night with Conan O'Brien. And that's the power of the lens and feel." She was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress for her role as Connie, and she won Actress of the Year at the Hollywood Film Awards. But what was more important was that it changed how people saw her. She is no longer the teenage girlfriend and is not defined by her male co-stars. She is now a real actor whose eyes and silence can carry an entire movie. Diane Lane did not slow down after Unthinkable. In less than a year, she was back in movies, with Under the Tuscan Sun, 2003. The tone of the movie was very different, but it made her career even better. As Frances, a middle-aged woman who just got divorced, she left her old life in the US to buy a run-down house in Tuscany and start over.